When Marcus pulled into his driveway that crisp afternoon, he recognized in the waning sunlight the familiar curve of the garage door that had greeted him for years. His heart drummed with calm relief as he navigated the final stretch home after a long day of meetings, deadlines, clients relying on him. He'd returned calls on his phone as he backed the car into the bay, pulling gently forward until the bumper whispered into place. He clicked the remote to lower the door, marveling at the comfort of routine, till the sharp crackle of panic shattered it. Stop. Stop right now. The voice warbled with hysteria, a high-pitched alarm slicing through the quiet of the Koldash-Dadash sack. Startled, Marcus froze. He turned to see her, white, middle-aged arms thrown up to shield herself as though the sun had blinded. Her eyes pulsed with fear, not at the stranger across the street, but directed at him. A familiar face in his own home, framed by shadows. The woman whom residents of the neighborhood knew only as the new HOA president. Karen sprinted toward him, her voice pitched high. "He's stealing the car. Call 911. Her words hit him like a blow, as though the limitations of belief could be more bruising than any physical strike. Her misreading of his presence was instantaneous and devastating. Marcus is not a criminal. But to her, he was a black man in a driveway. He was a threat. His palms tense on the garage door button, he pressed down again. Still, his garage remained open, mid-descent, as did the chasm between his reality and the one imposed on him by this stranger. She raised her phone, fingers trembling, either in fear, in rage, or in both, and dialed. The sound of sirens began to drift down the quiet street, a drumbeat of impending confrontation. Marcus stepped back toward the house, confusion mixing with rising indignation. This was his sanctuary. This was his address. He had moved into the neighborhood years ago, buying the property with blood, sweat, and a dream. It was his sanctuary, not a set for suspicion. "Sir, what are you doing?" demanded a voice behind him. Turning, Marcus saw Officer Rivera, a local African-American woman known for her steady breath under pressure, stride into view. Her presence cut the tension for him, a mirror of community. For Karen, perhaps a moment's pause, or maybe another layer of fear. She approached slowly, authority radiating from calm professionalism. "Ma'am," Rivera addressed Karen, voice level. "What's going on?" "My God, this man, he's stealing the car I just bought. See, it's M Ford black SUV? That's my car." Karen's words erased, disjointed with panic, yet threaded with ownership. Ownership of an object? Yes. But what of the truth? Officer Rivera's eyes flicked to Marcus, who had dropped his shoulders but kept his gaze steady, resolute. "Sir, could you please step aside and show ID?" Marcus complied, retrieving his driver's license with hands steady from his pocket. He offered it to the officer with quiet dignity, even as he felt a cold quiver and ache for acknowledgement. As human, not as perpetrator. As Officer Rivera scanned the ID, Karen moved closer, breath tight. "But there was a car like Minai, just bought it. A black Ford Explorer. He could have taken mine." Rivera's expression remained dispassionate, trained. "Ma'am, does he have your license plate number? Or the color is all you have?" Room seemed to constrict as Karen shook her head. Marcus's breath came a fraction more quickly of anger. Yes, but also a pragmatic self-control. He unlatched his garage door fully and let it rise, revealing his own SUV. Not identical, but similar enough to, for herblore, reality into prejudice. Rivera handed the license back. "Everything checks out. You're at your home, sir." Then, to Karen, "Sometimes things look familiar. But this man is in his own driveway." Marcus felt the weight of their words sink into the air. Relief washed through him, followed by a laboring sorrow, for how easily misjudgment and fear can shatter. Peace. As the officer directed him back, Karen stood frozen, phone still in hand. Tears brimming in remorse or shame, maybe a mixture of both, Rivera stayed long enough to calm both souls. Reassuring Marcus that official records would reflect no incident. Reassuring Karen that an apology, if tangled with disbelief, held the first thread of restoration. She encouraged open dialogue, invited them to talk in person. Marcus nodded politely. He had grace to spare, though his chest burned with exhaustion. Karen's apology was staccato, disembodied. I'm so sorry. I thought I assumed. She trailed off, voice faltering into admitted fault. Marcus met her eyes. Saw not just her fear, but the human crack of realization. In that exchange, he saw that her prejudice had grown unchecked. And in confronting it, he stood not just for himself, but for every person who had wondered, in their heart, if they belonged. Marcus stepped forward. He extended his hand not in concession, but in courageous offer to repair. She took it, her grip trembling, marking a moment that would ripple through the neighborhood, in reputation, in policy, in awareness, and in that handshake, the air shifted. The sirens receded into memory. The garage door clicked shut. Inside, behind windows, neighbors watched the scene unfold, absorbed the lesson in dignity and justice delivered not through shouts or signs, but through calm, courage, and resolute humanity. That day didn't end with a headline. It ended in a driveway that had momentarily become a judgment stage, but today it returned to being a sanctuary. Inside, Marcus reclaimed more than his space. He reclaimed his right to peace. And while the ripples of trauma from whispered fears lingered, a seed of possibility was planted, that in naming fear, you may build bridges to understanding. Days passed in the quiet hum that follows upheaval. In the neighborhood chat group, the scene replayed and posted messages, some expressing disgust at what happened. But the tone was shifting. Voices called for accountability, for learning, for a space in which all residents could feel safe being themselves. Marcus returned to his routines, lawn mowing at twilight.
Weekend coffee runs.
But every step felt laced with awareness. The world had watched a moment. He had been seen as a criminal in his own home. Each time he swung his gate open or bumped elbows with a neighbor in passing, he carried the weight of that moment balanced with the resolve that it wouldn't define him. The HOA scheduled its next meeting at the community hall. Notices fluttered into mailboxes, urging attendance, promising discussions about neighborhood harmony. Marcus received his with tight breath, uncertain what awaited. Deliberated should he attend? Would speaking his truth help, or reopen wounds? On the evening of the meeting, the hall was full. People leaned forward, chairs arranged in tight rows. A projector glowed with the HOA logo, a symbol of collective governance hung over the restless crowd. Karen sat at the head table, her shoulders straightened, hands folded, ready to face what she'd provoked. The room quieted. The president spoke first, her voice shaped by humility. She began with the incident unequivocally. She owned her actions. The assumptions rooted in race, the fear that overtook reason, the false alarm she triggered. No equivocation. The words were precise, professional, and trembled with remorse. She invited Marcus to address the group. Marcus rose, the hush folding around him. He inhaled, acknowledging each pair of eyes, each held breath. Then he spoke not with anger, but with quiet power. He described how it felt to live as an automatic suspect. How, for many black men, these assumptions weren't hypotheticals, but a constant pulse of threat. He spoke of dignity and how easily it can be dismissed, of justice, and how bravery isn't always in confrontation, it's often in restraint. And he described the resolution he hoped for, not revenge, but recognition of humanity. Tears wet. More than a few faces, some neighbors wiped cheeks, while some nodded, silently swallowing guilt or epiphany or hope. The atmosphere simmered with change. Then this. A motion passed unanimously to organize neighborhood workshops on implicit bias, brought in cognitive justice educators. Another resolution formed to invite community policing officers for open dialogue, to deepen trust. A smaller group committed to restorative storytelling, events where residents of different backgrounds could share their histories and dreams. Marcus volunteered to help shape these events, not as a guest, but as a guide. From that night forward, transformation began. The workshops drew reluctant and eager alike. Karen attended, trembling but present, and listened. She heard stories, not abstract but flesh and blood stories of growing up judged, of microslights that multiply into wounds. She witnessed not just theory but living history and yearning. Each attendee learned something not measured in guilt, but in humility. At one event, Marcus was asked to open with his voice, to instruct the rest of the neighborhood in the art of listening, not to just reply, but to hold someone's narrative next to your own and feel what it asks of you. He spoke of pride, the pride of lineage, of survival, of advancement, of how discrimination slams us into corners, then asks us to shine anyway. As weeks turned to months, the neighborhood changed. The HOA board diversified. Community gatherings featured cultural celebrations, potlucks with shared dishes, music that carried stories from every block. The driveway where fear once reigned became a symbol of a healed possibility, a story told by Marcus, by neighbors, by memory.